You know, we do a lot of talking about property rights, a lot of talk about water rights, but what I want to talk today about is far more personal than any of those. It's about the right to choose what you eat and how governments around the world can influence that on a daily basis, as well as who's making recommendations to influence it. If global planners have their way, the right to choose what you eat, to have sanctuary over your own body, will no longer be your right. How many of you have heard of the phrase, the great food transformation? This transformation is a real thing. Have you heard of the EAT-Lancet Commission? They first published a report back in 2019, and a few days ago they decided to update their very draconian view of what food could look like around the world in the future. You know, and as we get into digital IDs, and more ways of tracking everything that you do as a human being, from your cell phone, from artificial intelligence, all of that could tie in to making this work for them. And they're very excited about it. They're writing papers about it. Now, this paper is backed by your normal culprits, the Rockefeller Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, although I think they should change their names since Melinda left Bill over the whole Epstein thing, which Epstein didn't have a client list, so I don't know what the problem was there. But the paper is called The Great Food Transformation. And on paper, it does sound like a very noble thing, like everything else. Saving the planet, ending hunger, making diets, quote unquote, sustainable. But when you read the fine print of this paper, what they're really talking about is transformation of you and me, although I'll do anything to keep it from happening. They actually want to transform what you can grow, what you can sell, what you can consume. They want governments to shift farm subsidies. This is why I don't like subsidies. They provide too much control. They want to raise taxes on certain food products. They even want to regulate production based upon their views of planetary health. And their views are the science, and the science is settled. And so therefore, they decide what's good for the earth. And to put it simply, your steak dinner is probably not going to make that cut. And in fact, their Planetary Health Diet only allows you to consume about 14 grams of meat per day. That's about a bite of a cheeseburger, folks, a bite of a cheeseburger. And you are saving the planet. Actually, it might be more the size of your child's bite of a cheeseburger. 14 grams is not that much.
Ancient eras and natural selection have refined and tailored pristine fibers with the resilience for today's days. Evolving beyond the last ice age, bison wool is nature's most dependable activewear. Buffalo Wool Company, 100% proven by nature, 100% American made.
Check out the Buffalo Wool Company collection at yanasatradingco.com.
They say that it's for the planet and for your own health. But here's the problem, is that red meat, believe it or not, is one of the most nutrient-dense foods a human can consume. And because it's nutrient-dense, you don't have to eat so much of the other stuff. If you were to actually look at a food pyramid in a way that was healthy for you, meat would probably be at the top, then vegetables, grains all the way down at the bottom. Top to bottom meaning what you should eat the most of and what you should eat the least of. I guess that's the upside down pyramid. Anyway, you get what I'm talking about. Meat's packed with protein, it's packed with B vitamins, iron, zinc, other nutrients that your body just cannot get out of vegetables. And if it can, it's just small trace amounts. You've got to eat more and more and more, which means they have to produce more and more and more. Wonder why Bill Gates owns so much farmland. But even in the plants, it's not necessarily in a bioavailable form, which means when you eat these things and you're trying to get these nutrients out of these other sources, a lot of the time your body just isn't designed to be able to extract those nutrients from those sources. In other words, folks, it's complete BS. A lot of these studies linking red meat to disease have very weak correlations, and a lot of those studies are ironically funded by groups that have alternative motives. There's really not any proven causation if you look into these studies. But those studies are now being used to implement taxes, restrictions, and policy changes to impact your diet, because a study that was funded by I don't know, a few billionaires trying to start up some sort of fake meat company say it's bad for you. And because it's bad for you, we must regulate it. because the government knows what's best for you. And they're trying to reshape agriculture around the world. We talk about a lot of problems here in the United States on this channel. I've covered things that have happened in Canada. I've talked a little bit about Europe over the years. But this is something that we're seeing around the world, this change in policy, these restrictions, these recommendations. I did a video recently on UNESCO's recommendations on education. This is how it influences. It influences people at every level of every government in every country, every city, every state. But I think you should ask yourself a question, because red meat is essential for human health. Besides the people who go vegetarian for a little bit and then turn back to meat. There's always a new one going vegetarian to speak up. But if meat is essential for human health, why are they trying to restrict you from eating it? Why do they want to stop it? I mean, if society needs something to be healthy and live long, why would you stop that? Why would you force society into, I don't know, certain medications and vaccinations that reduce their lifespan? Governments are already using subsidies and taxes to steer production. You see this around the world, and you see it in the United States. I kind of have a theory right now. When we have all this grain and corn, and we're having to bail out all the farmers because we're not selling to China, well, it's going to create this surplus of cheap corn and soybeans here in the United States. We're also trying to rebuild our cattle herd because we're at extremely low numbers. Well, suddenly when you have this surplus of all these grains and basically things that you could turn into animal feed around the United States, you create cheap feed to feed animals. And you can actually see that retention, that heifer retention, to help rebuild. I'm not saying that they did this on purpose. I'm just saying if I wanted to create a policy to entice farmers to hold back some heifers to rebuild our national cattle herd, that's one of the ways that I would do it if I was the type of person who liked to manipulate things. And I think it would be a good thing because really, I mean, people need meat. Meat prices have gone through the roof. We've got to do something. Anyway, so they want to be able to label meat products, beef and chickens, poultry, pork, as high carbon food products. As high carbon food products, they're trying to convince governments to cut subsidies to those industries and increase subsidies to plant-based foods, lab-grown foods. You can grow meat in a lab and not be high carbon, and therefore let's subsidize it. Once you subsidize something, it floods the market. It's like what we did with corn in this country. Corn is in everything because of how heavily it's subsidized. Same with soy, all right? So if you subsidize something, it pumps it into the market. Market availability reaches the consumer. Whether they like it or not, eventually everybody's got to fold, especially when it costs you about $75 to eat a ribeye. But diet surveillance is another topic that's coming up here, and that would include digital IDs. Food credits. Well, you already have food credits through SNAP programs, WIC programs. I really think, too, when they roll out these central bank digital currencies, they're going to be able to track every single currency. It's going to have a code. It's going to know where it went, who it went to, what they bought with it, what else they're buying with it. It's going to be able to track, I mean, with these data centers rolling out, they're going to be able to track every single part of everybody's life, down to the T. They'll be able to dot the I on top of your head. Now, if they decide to take your digital wallet and tie it to some sort of carbon score, you might have to walk to work if you're going to want to eat that ribeye tonight. They could, in theory, limit you from what you buy at a grocery store based on your previous activities. Our entire lives could end up running off of algorithms if they're not already. You have entered the matrix, my friends. You think I'm crazy, but this is stuff that's actually happening. And like I said, this is the type of stuff that you get out of these papers of global influencers who are saying, this is where policy needs to go. We need to take control. They want to invest between $200 and $500 billion a year to help governments switch to this new policy of tracking and controlling everything everybody eats to completely change the diets of human beings around the planet. Because if we don't, the planet's going to burn up in a few years. You've heard that one before. I mean, heck, the ocean's rolling around me right now. There are actually pilot programs right now that are testing these theories, that are testing digital wallets alongside carbon footprints. They're already working on this. Instead of a consumer, in the future, you will become a data point with a quota, And that is the best transformation towards socialism, because then we just can make everybody equal. Guys, this isn't about health. This isn't about the planet. This is about 110% control. If we lose food sovereignty, we lose the very basic right of human need. The foundations that are backing these reports, like Bill Gates, they're also backing gene-edited seeds, lab-grown proteins, synthetic fats, anything that they could put a patent on and therefore earn money off of when the rest of us are forced into this system. Corporations will own the future food supply. Right now, there's 7 corporations that do it, and there's a few of us out there that are growing our own food or buying from local farmers. In the future, that's off the table. They're going to control every single aspect of it because they have to control carbon. Don't forget, you breathe carbon. It's kind of what I would call a biological monopoly. All this gene editing, they're even doing it microbes in the soil, and they're greenwashing it and packing it up in a nice shiny green package and handing it to people like Ocasio-Cortez. You know, guys, to me, food freedom isn't some luxury idea. It's not some sort of luxury concept that's only meant for the elite. It is food sovereignty for your body. It is sovereignty and agency over your own self. If somebody else could dictate to you what you eat, they control your health, they control your vaccinations, they control everything about you. They control how you mentally develop. They control whether or not you reproduce. Oh, by the way, I was reading the other day in Australia that apparently drinking raw milk can increase your fertility chances. Of course, there was an article that came out right after that that said it also can increase your miscarriage chances, and it's extremely unhealthy, and you shouldn't listen to what they're saying. It's not scientifically backed. I love how there's always, you know, a jab back when somebody finds something to be useful, you know? When there is a natural way of doing something, there's always a reason why we shouldn't. I think when you attack food freedom, you don't only take away independence, you take away culture, you take away identity. That's why rural communities, homesteaders, farmers, they're so important to us in society. They're vital. They keep food production decentralized. And by keeping it decentralized, we keep freedom alive. The so-called great food transformation claims it's about saving the planet. But if it strips away your right to choose what you grow, what you raise, what you eat, then it's not sustainable. It's the other S word that we think about, submission. Freedom starts with food, folks. The moment somebody else controls your plate, they control your life. Everybody is calling for a much colder, stormier winter. What does that mean for you? Well, it means that there could be possible power outages and some very long, dark days, because as you know, the days are only getting shorter from here on out. Yanasa Trading Co. has finally launched its Bee Yard collection. We currently have natural beeswax candles for sale on Yanasa Trading Co. These candles last about 10 hours each. They're clean burning. Unlike paraffin candles that put toxins into the air, beeswax candles actually help neutralize the air. We only use beeswax candles in our household because we care about our health, we care about our children's health, and we like the smell of warm honey in the dead of winter. Check out Yanasa Trading Co. and order your beeswax candles today.